There is an abandoned mall in Franklin, Ohio, Franklin Ridge Mall. After the fire in 2009, no one goes there anymore. But the locals say every Christmas at midnight a Santa Claus roams inside. One who never blinks, Max, a 19-year-old boy, entered the mall to do an urban legend investigation. His own camera, light, and a Santa-themed scarf around his neck. The air inside the mall is cold. The elevator is broken, and on the dusty glass of the old Subway shop, there are strange scratch marks. Suddenly, from somewhere, a sound echoed, "Ho, ho, ho," but the laugh wasn't human. It was metallic, distorted, like a broken speaker. When Max turned on his light, he saw a huge man in a Santa suit standing far away. His beard was dirty, his eyes were wide, and the most terrifying part, he wasn't blinking even once. Max said, "Sir, are you real?" Santa slowly laughed. "You've been a bad boy, Max." As Max stepped back, Santa's feet didn't touch the ground. He was floating forward in the air. His eyes were turning red like fire. Suddenly, all the mall's Christmas lights turned on by themselves. In front of every shop, hundreds of mannequins wearing Santa suits began to move, plastic smiles on their faces, and their hands twisting unnaturally as they pointed toward Santa. Santa said, "Every Christmas, one more soul to complete the list." Max ran. Behind him was the metallic dragging sound, Santa pulling his iron belt across the floor as he moved. Just as Max reached the exit, Santa's big red glove touched his neck. Max flashed his camera light and saw Santa's face had no skin. The whole face was drawn on plastic. Santa whispered, "Smile for the holiday photo." The next day, Franklin police only found Max's camera. In the last frame, Santa is standing in the center of the mall, looking directly at the camera, still not blinking. Texas's Highway 281 has very few lights on Christmas night. All around are farmhouses, long stretches of highway, and a strange kind of silence. Around 12 a.m. on December 25th, Jordan was driving back to Dallas from San Antonio. The sky was clear, but thick fog was settling along both sides of the road. Suddenly, he saw an old house in the distance. In front of the house hung hundreds of Christmas lights, but the strange thing was, the lights were blinking in a specific pattern, as if calling someone. Jordan stopped the car. He had never seen any house in this area before. On the porch stood a girl, wearing a red sweater, her face pale and her eyes unnaturally large. The girl waved and said, "Help us." Jordan hesitated but went inside. The inside of the house was dark, with only one table lit by a hanging bell-shaped light. The girl whispered, "Every Christmas he turns the lights on, and one of us disappears." Terrified, Jordan looked around and saw old family photographs hanging on the wall. 1990, 1995, 2001, 2010. In every picture, a child from that year was missing. Suddenly, the outside lights went out. The door slammed shut. With the cold Texas wind came a male voice from outside. "Another Christmas, another one for the lights," the girl cried and said, "He chose you." As Jordan tried to run, all the lights turned on at once. He saw every window that should have been closed now had figures standing in them. Their eyes glowed with red light. He heard a deep, inhuman, rumbling voice. "Lights need souls." The next morning, Highway Patrol found only Jordan's car by the road. There was no sign of any house, only a faint shimmer in the fog, like distant lights. And on the backup dash cam, the girl's last whisper, "You're part of the lights now." Christmas Eve, on Arizona's Route 66, one of America's oldest and most deserted highways, Ethan was driving his silver SUV from Los Angeles toward Chicago. Around him lay frozen desert, abandoned gas stations, and the sound of a wind that felt dead. An old American song played on the radio, but beneath it, a strange uneasiness kept growing in him. Around 11:30 p.m., his phone rang. Unknown number. The moment Ethan picked up, a broken, raspy voice whispered, "Why did you leave me on Christmas, Ethan?" Ethan froze. He had never left anyone behind, but the fear grew stronger when he suddenly saw something in the rearview mirror. Far down the road, a man in a Santa costume was standing, head lowered, beard covered in frost, and his shadow unnaturally long. Ethan thought maybe it was a hallucination, but the fear became real when the phone rang again. "You drove this road before. Don't you remember the accident?" Ethan couldn't remember anything, yet the words felt disturbingly familiar. He had driven Route 66 back in 2017, but there was never any accident. Suddenly, the Santa-clad figure stepped into the middle of the road, so fast that Ethan slammed the brakes. The SUV skidded and slid onto a sandy mound. When he stepped out, he heard the sound of old bells, like ancient Christmas carols, but distorted. As the dust settled, the man was gone. But on the SUV door, written in red, were the words, "You left me here." Trembling, Ethan turned around. Someone was emerging from the darkness, a man covered in sand, both arms broken, Santa coat torn, his face exposed, flesh peeling. He spoke. "7 years ago, you hit me." Ethan stuttered. "No, that's not true." The man slowly lifted his head. He had no eyes, only black, hollow pits. His voice echoed across the desert. "This time, you're not driving away." Ethan tried to run, but his phone rang again. On the screen it said, "Incoming call. You." He stared at it, his own distorted face reflected on the screen, and behind him stood the Santa figure, its head right beside Ethan's neck. The last thing heard was, "Merry Christmas, Ethan." After that night, Ethan's SUV was never found on that stretch of Route 66. Only one thing remained, written on the desert sand: "I'm still waiting."